This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. The Trump administration is telling a federal judge to go pound sand. They are not going to tell him anything more about those secret, midnight, surreptitious, under cover of dark, in violation apparently of a court order, flights to Venezuela to dump people without due process, without getting in front of any judge, into the worst, darkest, dankest, most violent prisons in the world in El Salvador, where more than 350 people have died in the last 2 years, presumably under natural causes. You can see why Judge Boesburg, the judge, is concerned and put a block on it. And the issue now is whether the government was in violation, willful violation of the court's order to not continue to deport pursuant to the Alien Enemies Act, to send these people to that El Salvadorian prison or not, having been apprised at about 6:35 last Saturday of the injunction, yes or no. The government kept filing all of these broken record type writ writings in which they said, well, we didn't send any more after 7:30, not after 7:30, not after 7:30. And the judge says, yeah, but my order said 6:30. I want to know what happened between 6:30 and 7:30. I want to know the who, what, where, why, and when. Oh, we can't tell you, Judge. State secret privilege is being invoked. I'm Michael Popok, Legal AF. Let's dive into that. So we have the notice invoking state secrets privilege. It wasn't unexpected. The judge told the administration last week, I want an affidavit of somebody with knowledge, sworn testimony, that there were actually deliberations at the cabinet level position about potentially exercising the state secrets privilege. Now, the state secrets privilege is not, you can't look it up in a book. It's not in a statute. It's not in a code book. It was created by the Supreme Court. It's precedent. See, a lot of the things that the Trump administration complains about, one judge reviewing our actions. There's nothing that says they can do that. That's not true. There is plenty of Supreme Court precedent that creates jurisdiction, that creates a role for the judge in this checks and balance system. And in particular, they have in 1953, the Supreme Court created the state secrets privilege, which is generally used where the executive branch invokes the privilege, claiming some sort of national security that will be violated if any of this information gets out in open court. But that's not what we're trying to do here. What the judge is trying to do is get to the bottom of whether one of his orders was violated. And he needs more facts in order to do that. The Trump administration says, you don't need more facts. You've got all the facts. We're not giving you the facts. It's unprecedented. It's a power grab by the judicial branch, and go pound sand, effectively. So we knew that the judge had given the Trump administration until Tuesday, today, to invoke it or not and give the judge the rationale for it. So they have filed a 10-page piece of paper signed by Drew Ensign. One note about Drew Ensign. When he's in front of the judge, let's talk about passive aggressive. When he's in front of the judge, it's a lot of, yes, sir, no, sir, you're right, sir, I understand the injunction, sir. No, I don't know why the planes took off, sir. But when he's writing, or somebody's writing for him, he's all piss and vinegar about the judge. It's unprecedented. It's unheard of. It's unheralded. You have all the information that you need. He would never speak like this to a federal judge in person. That's why this federal Judge Boesburg has said on at least one occasion in this matter, I am getting a level of vocabulary and sentence structure that I've never seen before by the government. In other words, you're being impertinent and you're being disrespectful, and I don't like it. So it just goes to show you that they're sending this guy out to the lions. I mean, he could quit his job if he didn't like it. This Drew Ensign for the Department of Justice, and somebody else is writing it for him. And it's part of the constant disrespect and trying to undermine the federal judiciary that's been going on even before Donald Trump became president of the United States. And so they start with, I'll read to you from some of the notice invoking the state secrets privilege. This is first page. This is a case about the president's plenary authority derived from Article 2 and the mandate of the electorate, and reinforced by longstanding statute to remove from the homeland designated terrorists participating in state-sponsored invasion of and predatory incursion into the United States. See, that's the very point. The judge is trying to get to the bottom in the temporary restraining order whether there has been an invasion or an incursion by a government. as opposed to just a criminal narco-terrorist gang that's been roaming around America for the last 5 or 10 years. Because that's the difference. That's, it sits on the edge of a knife here as to whether the president can use his plenary war powers or not, whether there really is a war going on. Certainly there hasn't been one that's been disclosed or have been declared. Accordingly, the government continues, the state secrets privilege forecloses further demands for details that have no place in this matter, and the government will address the court's order to show cause tomorrow by demonstrating that there is no basis for the suggestion of non-compliance with any binding order. What they're trying to say there is, later today, they're going to file yet another piece of paper that says they're not in contempt of court. I guess they're going to try to argue that we knew about the order at 6:30, but we didn't tell everybody till 7:30, and the planes departed in between. Or they're going to say some version of, you don't really have that authority, so we ignored it, or we only listen to writings, we don't listen to oral declarations of injunctions, something crazy. Now, just to take a break for a minute, where are we with this case? The judge yesterday affirmed his temporary restraining order, renewed it, if you will, restraining them from using the Alien Enemies Act to continue to deport. But he made it clear he's not saying you can't use the Alien Enemies Act to round people up and put them in jail, subject to habeas corpus petitions to bring the person before a judge. He's not saying, and reminded them, I'm not saying you can't deport them under the immigration statute in front of an immigration judge. You say they're members of a criminal gang, go prove it, then deport them. And you don't have to let them out in the meantime. I'm not opening the jails and letting them all out. So this is just about deporting them to El Salvador without due process. But here they're telling the judge, they're scolding the judge in language that I've rarely seen against a federal judge, except when Trump is in effect, saying, you got to defer to us. We're telling you it's a state secret. You got to believe us. You're not allowed to dive beneath that. We're not even going to tell you anything in camera. You got everything you need. This has nothing to do with the case or compliance, even though the judge says that it is. And we're invoking state secret privilege, state secrets privilege. The problem is state secrets privilege probably doesn't apply. It does not apply. State secrets privilege had historically been used until this moment. If you were a plaintiff and you were suing the government for an injury, and in order to prove your case, you needed to rely on a state secret, something that addressed the national security of the country. The U.S. government would sweep into the case, because usually the other side wasn't the U.S. government. They would intervene in the case, and they would say, whoa, this dispute between these two, they want to use this issue. This information is a state secret. We're declaring it a state secret. They can't use it. The judge says, well, let me take a look. Okay, I agree with you. Can't use it. Case dismissed, because the person can't prove their case without the thing that's now been designated state secret. That's a horse of a different color than a federal judge saying, I want to know if you violated my order. In fact, when I read through the 37-page decision by Judge Boesburg in the last 24 hours, he lays out a pretty good case for his order being violated. Because I had known until this order about, because it wasn't in the reporting that I was reading, that there was actually a break in the action. Last Saturday, there was a hearing. What happened is, let's take it back further. Early Saturday morning, I mean like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, the American Civil Liberties Union filed the lawsuit. The government sort of knew it was coming. And the judge pulled everybody together at about 9 o'clock in the morning on Saturday and said, we're holding a hearing later today. Somewhere they got wind of the filing, because it's a public docket. And, if you can have one of these services that tell you, bing, you've been sued. So it looks to the judge like, knowing that the suit had been filed early in the morning on Saturday, knowing at least by 9:20 there was going to be a hearing at 5 o'clock, the government sped up the process of getting these people deported to El Salvador. And the judge doesn't like that. And especially after the judge pulled everybody together at 5 o'clock, started asking detailed questions about the flight path, not the flight path, but the flight, who's on it, what do they know, where are they going? And when the lawyer, Drew Ensign, didn't know the answers, the judge says, I got an idea. It's 5:20. We've been doing this 20 minutes. Let's take a break. And at 6 o'clock, I want answers to my questions. So go make phone calls, government, and come back and tell me about if flights have taken off, where they've gone, where they came from, and the rest. Okay. I didn't know about that break. He reconvenes at 6 o'clock, 6 o'clock-ish. And he turns to the lawyer for the Department of Justice and says, okay, what do you know? Well, I don't know anything. He doesn't know anything because they tried to give him what's increasingly become implausible deniability with the Trump administration and saying, they wouldn't tell him. I'm sure he was not told. He was told, shut your mouth. We're not telling you that information. He's like, but I'm an officer of the court. I swore on duty. I got to have candor to the tribunal. Well, we don't care about that. Lie to the judge. Don't tell him anything. So he went and said, oh, I don't know anything, Judge. And the judge says, I'm not happy about that. Let's continue with the hearing. Continues with the hearing. He ends up certifying the class temporarily, entering a temporary restraining order, setting a briefing schedule. And again, just so everybody understands the limits of the injunction, the two injunctions. It is just to stop deportation to El Salvador of these Venezuelans or people subject to the Alien Enemies Act until the judge can figure out what's going on with full briefing. And he made it clear, you can capture people under it. You can detain people under the Alien Enemies Act. You can put them in concentration camps effectively for a period of time. You can deport them pursuant to the immigration statute. It's been on the books since the 1950s. And just get them before a judge. Just use due process. No. We have to have the Christy Nome, Stephen Miller special, where they're shackled, shaved, thrown into a deep, dark hole of El Salvador, where 370 people have died in the last 2 years of natural causes, in which there is reports that they take a dead body, a person who's died, and throw them into the jail cell to freak everybody out until it stinks, and then they remove it. And that when they've done autopsies, or independent groups have seen it, it's obvious that these prisoners that died of natural causes, it's only natural causes if you think a beating to death is a natural cause. And that gave the judge all he needed in terms of invoking the injunction to protect these people from certain death, or at least, you shouldn't be, it's like sending them into the Squid Games prison. Picture that. So I went through this notice of invoking state secrets privilege. It's a whole lot of, I'm me and you're not me and you're you and I'm the president and I get to be the only one in the executive branch. I'm unitary. People voted for me. I'm giving you the theatrical version. This is the 1-minute Broadway version of this State Secrets Act. And you're not even allowed to look, and we're not even going to tell you, and you don't need it, and you should ignore it, and we'll see you in court. Like, okay, we're in court. And the judge already took a look at this argument that it's political question doctrine is applicable, and that he doesn't have the power to review these actions of the president, and he's rejected it. He said, I'm a judge and I'm allowed to look at, and I'm permitted to, and it's mandated that I look at language of an act or a statute and see if it applies to a certain scenario. And I can interpret the words enemy and country and incursion and invasion and decide whether all of that has happened to allow for the president to exercise these these wartime powers. The judge says the case from 1953, the Ludecky case, is right on point. In Ludecky, the United States Supreme Court said that it was up to a judge. It was appropriate for a judge to interpret whether a war was still going on at the time the Alien Enemies Act was still being used by Roosevelt. Even Roosevelt, by the way, and he was a muscular user of the Alien Enemies Act like we've never seen, except for Trump. He rounded up German Americans, Japanese Americans, Italian Americans, threw them all into a concentration camp, into an internment camp. But even he gave due process. I mean, there were like these, these civilian boards of non-lawyers and non-judges who were all caught up in the hysteria of World War II. So you can question whether that was really due process, but at least they had due process of some sort. Or as Judge Millett said today in this very case, a D.C. Circuit Court judge on the appellate court, the Nazis were treated better than these Venezuelans on the way out. The Nazis! That's the headline. So what do I think is going to happen? The judge gave the ACLU and the Venezuelans on the plaintiff's side another 5 days or so to respond to the state secrets privilege. He won't rule on the contempt issue. The appellate decision we're waiting on as to whether this temporary injunction order, the underlying order, is going to be blocked or not during the pendency of the appeal. We're waiting on that. And then depending upon that decision, Donald Trump takes his inevitable emergency application to the United States Supreme Court. We'll follow it all here on Legal AF. Take a moment, hit the subscribe button. Till my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event, by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states, and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.